Let's continue making the tables for the inventory management system, and this is what exactly we are going to do in this video. In the last video, we made tables from product till the transaction types. So we will continue and we will start with the purchase table today in this video. But before I do that, if you are new to my channel, returning, welcome back and welcome to my channel. Make sure that you hit subscribe and hit the bell icon so you get notification whenever I upload a new video. Do watch it. I'm sure there will be something for you to learn, for you to take away, although it's just simply making the database, simply making the tables, and that's what we are doing. So rather than me talking about it, let's get started, and we begin with the purchase table. Now in the purchase table, the objective of this table, by name you can understand, obviously when we are talking about the inventory management, we have to do the purchase of the inventory, right? So there will be a supplier from whom we will be buying the stock, whatever the product, we will be buying the stock. So multiple suppliers and multiple the products that we'll be buying in multiple times in a month, in a day, and in a week, etc. So for that, we need to hold that data somewhere, and that's where the purchase table will come in. Of course, if you talk about the, for the bigger organizations, even the medium organization, they will have many more details rather than just 4 columns under the purchase table. But because this is a demonstration, this is a best practices we are demonstrating, so I kept it simple for everyone and so for anyone who can understand clearly. So let's begin with the purchase table, and let's go back to our SQL Server Management Studio. And right here, if you remember, we right click on the tables and we say new table, and we are right in the designer for making the table. The first field is purchase ID, and again it is going to be number, and it is going to be auto number. So we'll keep it as int. We don't want allow null. And then because we want this as a primary key, we will set it as a primary key. It's not yet set as a primary key. So first thing we will do is we come down here in the properties of this field, and we expand the identity specification. And here right now, is identity is no. So we sort of turn this on by double clicking or from this menu. So we turn this on. Identity increment and seed is 1 1, and that is what we were looking for. Now because this is a primary key, we will go on the top, and from the menu we click on the button called set primary key. There you go. So now we have set the primary key. We have identified this as an identity field, and we have put some increment as well. Right, so let's move on. And now supplier, of course, this is going to be text field. So we'll keep it as varchar, but instead of 50 length, let's give 200 length, okay? And I don't want this to be null as well. And then we come to purchase date. Of course, by name we can understand it is going to be date, and I don't want this to be null also. Status, and this is the status of the purchase order. So because this is going to be text, so we will keep the varchar. I don't know why, for some reason I keep selecting this weird. So all right, so I've just changed it to varchar, not var binary. Although I can explain what is var binary, but because we are not focused on that in this video, so I'm going to skip it for now. And here we go. And status also, we don't want to keep it empty. So let's save that, and let's call it purchase. Okay, that's not correct spelling of the purchase. And here we go. So let's close it. Now let's move on to the next one. Now this table is linked to the purchase table. So purchase details table means it will, so for example, let's say for a supplier, for a particular supplier, we will actually, hang on, I've done a mistake. So let me go back And let me correct that, otherwise I may forget. Somebody also reported me in the last video that I've done a mistake. I will see that comment and what mistake I did. I'm pretty much sure the mistake is this supplier. I kept it as varchar. Actually, supplier should be the foreign key, hence this should be the int field. Okay. All right, not here. Here, you know, I do a lot of mistakes, such mistakes sometimes. So here we go. Hopefully this is corrected. Okay. All right. So if you were shouting while you were watching, rest assured I've listened to you. Okay. All right. So now this table, purchase details table, will hold the information about the items. So for example, a supplier, we are going to buy 5 different line items, right? Line item mean one product, right? One product, one line item. Okay, so 5 different line items, doesn't matter the quantity, but those are all 5 different line items. So we can hold that information, giving the reference of the purchase in the purchase table. I don't know how much sense did I make, but let's get going. All right. So now right click again, new and table, and let's begin. The first field will be purchase detail ID. Again, it is going to be a primary key. So let's set that as a primary key. And now we'll come to the properties and we'll expand the property, for example, indexable. And we say yes. It's already yes. The reason is because I've marked this as a primary key. What we need to do, however, is I've done a mistake. I think so. Okay, first we have to define the increment. So let's remove that. And now let's turn it on manually from here. So let's get started with making this table. So we'll go back to the SQL and new table. And now I'll select the first field, product detail ID, purchase detail ID, sorry, int, and we don't want this to be null. And if we will come to the property of this field, right now identity is set as no. So let's turn this on, and then let's set this as a primary key. Okay, so that's done. Let's move on. Purchase ID. Now this is a foreign key. Remember, we are going to link later on in next video this table with this purchase table, and so we will be linking with one of the link we will create is the purchase ID. Okay, so because this is a foreign key, so we'll keep it as int. And now let's move on. Product ID, this is also a foreign key. Remember, we will be linking this field with the product table. Cost price is the price, but we'll keep it as int. And then quantity also int. All right. And then total cost is int. Okay. And then the status is varchar. I'm pretty much sure that, when it comes to the pricing or the quantity, we are going to come back later when we are designing the interface, and then we will realize the decimal points, I'm sure. But we'll skip that part right now. We will see when we are designing the user interface and we are entering the data. So let's press Ctrl S. Let's give a name. So name we already have, but we'll copy it. We don't want any space in between purchase and details. So there you go. So the second table for this video is also created. Now let's move on. And as we were talking about purchase, of course, the stock that we will buy, we have to sell that. Okay. And so we will keep the similar pattern. That means we'll create a sales table and we'll create sales details table as well. Okay. So let's go ahead and do that. Order ID. Let's right click here and new. and table, and order ID int. We don't want this to be null. By now, I'm sure you are comfortable with this. I don't have to explain. Let's expand this, and we will make this as yes. And because this is a primary key, let's set that as a primary key. Sales date, it will be date. We don't want this to be null. Nothing should be null, few things we can keep null that may not be required, but mostly it should be not null. Okay, so the customer name. Now, talking about customer name, somebody mentioned in the comments that, hey, why don't you make customer table? We will make it, and therefore let's change that to the int. Okay, all right, happy now? I'm sure you're watching and you're smiling because I've hopefully you're smiling because I've addressed your request. These things, let them come in, right? Whatever you think we need to add something, please do let me know. There's nothing wrong in recommending, suggesting. Okay, so here we go. And status, it should be varchar 50, although it's a lot. 20 for the status is enough. All right, so we're pretty much done with the sales table. Let's save that and let's call it sales. Simple as that. And now we'll create the sales order details. So now I'm sure you know what this table is for. Like we did for the purchase, we are going to create the table for the sales as well. Okay, so let's create a table and right click, new table, and SO detail ID, and let's give the this as a primary key, and let's change in the identity, yes, and let's set this as a primary key. By the way, my YouTube analytics suggests that on an average you watch the last video I made, you watch for 3 minutes maximum. So I was thinking, I make videos for like 15 minutes long and I've reduced time a lot, but still people don't watch. Please do watch at least until the end. I'm not saying because of my benefit, I'm saying because of your benefit. Okay, and also let's be honest, it gives encouragement to the creator. So I'm sure you got the idea. Anyway, order ID, so this is going to be foreign key, and so therefore we'll keep it as int. Product ID, this is going to be foreign key as well, so we'll keep it as int and not null. Selling price, of course, int. Okay, not null. And then we have the quantity, int, not null. And then we have the total price, int, not null. And then we have the status, int, not int, varchar. And then let me check why there are so many ints. Okay, so sales order detail, sales detail ID, order ID, product ID, selling price, quantity detail. Seems to be everything seems to be int except the status. So let's save that, and we will call this table as sales details. All right, so let's close that. Now let's move on to the next table we have, and that is inventory table. Now this is the crux of this application. By name you can understand it's inventory management system. So that means the inventory table holds a very much importance, because this table will actually determine the inventory management. It will hold the information about the transactions that are happening. So for example, if we have purchased something, it will add the quantity here. If we have sold something to the customers, it will deduct the quantity here. And if there is something returned from the customer, we will add that quantity back in our stock. So this table itself is extremely important, and I will be explaining you a bit more when we are working on creating the user interface. So that's why I'm saying, this is going to be exciting. So if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do that. Okay, so it's just important, right? Okay, So let's make another table, and that this time would be inventory table. So right click, new tables, and inventory ID. Of course, this is going to be the int field. You know what should we do is, I think, because this is an inventory table, I don't want a separate inventory ID. Or should we make an inventory ID? I'm just thinking from down the line if this will cause a problem. What I was thinking is we will make the product ID. No, hang on. Let's continue. Okay. So inventory ID, we don't want this as a null because this is a primary key. So let's go to the property. Let's expand that and let's make it yes. And let's make it primary key. Okay. Now next is product ID. Of course, this is going to be the foreign key. So that would be int transaction date. When did we do the transaction? So that's very, very important. So later you can run reports. Transaction type. Now remember, we have made a table in the previous video called transaction type. So we will link this particular field to that label. So this means we'll make it as int, because this is going to be the foreign key or secondary key. Quantity change. So this is going to be int as well. We don't want this to be null. And the new quantity in stock, this is also going to be int. And then the status, and this is going to be varchar. Okay, varchar 50 is a lot, so let's make it 20. We don't want this to be null as well. So let's save that. And of course, we'll give the name inventory. Okay, so that's done. Now let's move on and make the second last table. Remember, we haven't added is the customer table. Okay, so that we will create for sure. But let's move on and create the accounting table. Again, accounting table, as I said in the previous video, we're not going to make full-fledged accounting system, but we'll stick to the basics. So at least the basics you have in your database. So that's where the accounting table will be used for. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So right click, new table, and we'll give accounting ID. And of course, this is going to be primary key, and therefore it should be not null. And we go to the identity specification, we turn that on, and that's it. And of course, this is going to be primary, so let's define that here. All right, so reference ID. Now this is going to be int field as well. What is reference ID? Reference ID mean if we have purchased something, so the purchase ID number will be here. If we have sold something, sales order number will be here. If there is something returned, that return order number will be here. So that's why it's important that we keep this information for the accounting purpose. So if there has to be an audit, there is a trail and everything is linked to each other. Okay, transaction type, again, we have this as a foreign key. We will keep it here because we have a separate table called transaction type tables. We'll link this to that table. Product ID, we have a primary table called products, and of course we are going to link this field to that table. And then the cost price, of course there is a cost price for every product. You have seen that in the product table, and so we will get that cost price as well. Okay, and then there is a selling price, which is int as well. Okay, and let's make one more column. I don't know why I didn't make, so that is status. Always very, very handy that if we will make these kind of for every table we make the status column mandatory. Oops, what I'm doing. All right, so let's save that. Let's give the name accounting. All right, now last table is the customers table. So let's create that table as well. I don't have fields here, but we'll keep it simple. Okay, if the listener, the viewer, if you are the one who have recommended that we create a customer table, please add whatever you wish to add. So I'm going to add very few columns in that table. Okay, so let's create that new table, and we'll say, for example, of course, the customer ID and int, not null, and let's make this as a unique number. So let's switch it to yes, and let's make that as a primary key. Customer name, so varchar 250, and then we don't want this to be null. Let's say telephone, right? So phone number, let's put that as a varchar, or you can put it as number if you wish to do so. And after the telephone, we'll have email address of the customer. So let's keep it as 100 maybe. Yep, some email addresses are bigger. And then let's make it as status, as I said. Again, very, very important. And let's make it 20. Okay, so let's save this. And let's give a name, customers. All right, now all the tables that we wanted, we have created in this database, but we don't see all of them here. So as you know, we just right click on the tables or on the database and we say refresh it. So it will refresh, and therefore you can see all the tables that we have created in this database. So half of the work in laying the ground, the foundation is done, which means we have created the tables. The remaining half of the work, which means, and very important by the way, is to create relationship. That will happen in the next video. So I hope that you have learned something. I hope that it was a useful video for you to watch. If you're still watching, awesome, you're a legend. Thank you for watching until now. And again, anything you want to suggest, you want to ask, please do ask in the comments below. The reply might be delayed, but rest assured I do read the comments. Thank you so much for supporting this channel. Already have got 4,000 members, team members, so family members or community members. Please keep on supporting, keep growing, keep telling others if you like the content, whatever you watch, whatever you see, and I hope that it is useful. Anyway, thanks for watching, and make sure that you subscribe, hit the bell icon so you get notification whenever I upload a new video. Thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next one.